Hi friends, a lot of people are asking me, ma'am, tell me about the ZAT exam. How do I prepare for the ZAT exam? Now that CAT is over, what should I do to crack the ZAT exam? So in this one video, I'll explain everything about the ZAT exam, how to prepare for it, and I'll also tell you how Kraku can help you crack the ZAT exam. I have myself given ZAT multiple times. I have topped ZAT multiple times. So I know exactly what has to be done. So let's get started. So firstly, let's take a look at the exam. So the exam is basically considered as part of having two parts. The first part is your normal aptitude exam where you have quant, like reasoning and decision making and verbal ability. And there's the second part which is general knowledge. This general knowledge part is not used for shortlisting. The use of that general knowledge part is not very clearly known, but it is used for the final admission. But for shortlisting, this is not directly used. So I'll tell you about the both parts. They occur one after the other. So after the first section is over, the second section automatically starts. So in the same exam, you have basically this is 170 minutes, this is 10 minutes. So it's together 180 minutes. It happens one after the other. So for the first 170 minutes, let me explain what you have to do. So there are three sections. There is no sectional time limit. So you can spend as much time you want in any of the sections. First is the verbal ability and logical reasoning section. In CAT, if you are comparing it to CAT, you can consider it similar in a way to VARC. There are important differences. I'll tell you what the differences are. But you can consider it, okay, this is kind of like the VARC section. There you have 26 questions. The second section is the decision making section. It is a completely different section from anything else in any other exam. So you have to prepare for it also completely differently. You have basically 2 to 3 questions per set, mostly 3 questions, sometimes 2 questions. The overall number of questions is 21. The last section is quantitative aptitude and data interpretation. So basically a combination of DI and QA. DI is basically one set of DI will be there with 2-3 questions, but not a huge amount of DI will be there. Most of it is like similar and very similar to the quant section of CAT. It has 28 questions. Overall, you have 75 questions. The cutoffs are not very high. There are individual cutoffs. So you have to clear the decision making cutoff, you have to clear the verbal ability cutoff, you have to clear the QADI cutoff. So there are individual cutoffs to clear, but the final score should be as much or as high as possible so that you get the overall calls as such. Here you have to remember is that since they have not given sectional time limits, you can be smart about how you use your time. I'll tell you my strategy also, how to use the time. Because they have given you flexibility of how to distribute the time, you should utilize the time in a way that you clear the sectional cutoffs and then hit a century in the overall score. So you have to really do well in one of the sections. For me, the section that I target to do really well is the QADI section. I'll tell you why also. But generally, this is the overall pattern. You don't need to do equal time weightage or equal distribution, but you have to clear cutoffs in each of these three sections. The second section or second part of your exam is GK. There are about 20 questions in GK, 20-25 questions. You have about 10 minutes to solve it. You will not take even 10 minutes to solve them. It is basically you know the answer, you don't know the answer, you mark and go forward. It's mostly a mix of current affairs, static GK, history, geography, a combination of a lot of things. You should know about India quite well. If you know India very well and Indian business as well, this should be a fairly easy section for you to crack. Also remember the GK section is not directly used for shortlisting. What is used is you have to maximize the score in this first part of the exam. Okay, now I'll also briefly tell you my experience. I've given ZAT multiple times. My strategy, and I have topped ZAT I think 3 times at least. My strategy for doing well in ZAT has always been the same. I am fairly good at VALR by default because I am a tutor. I have a very good understanding of the verbal topics. So I'm fairly good at VALR because I'm a tutor. I have a lot of experience in these topics. I find it much easier to do. So I generally score well in VALR. Decision making is not a very scoring section. Remember that you have some time, you have to maximize the overall score. So it is, you can think of it like a profit maximization or a linear optimization puzzle. Here, even if I spend more time, I have realized that in decision making, I won't make that much more marks. So what I try to do is, I try to minimize the time in decision making and give as much time as possible in QADI. I give less time over here in verbal ability, I give less time in decision making, and I give as much time as possible in QADI. My general time allocation is like 30 minutes for verbal ability and logical reasoning, 40 to 45 minutes for decision making, and the remaining time, which is if you remove like 70 minutes from this, 100 minutes, 95 to 100 minutes for QADI. Now, why such a lopsided method? See, basically, I've realized that the way to get a very high score is to do exceedingly well in QADI. These 28 questions, the accuracy level you can get in these is like you can possibly get all 28 correct or very near 28 correct, because these are not very difficult quant questions. So your strategy, I would say that if you're looking to get a very high score in that, your strategy should always be that you do well in one section, you do so well in one section that your overall score becomes higher. So you have to figure out which section you get the most advantage from, the most competitive advantage, where do you have. So you have to give more amount of time over there and you have to get as high a score over there as possible. But you have to remember, I cannot give like say 0 minutes to decision making. Why? Because I have to also clear the sectional cutoffs. So I give enough time that I clear the sectional cutoffs, then I go to my area of strength so that I can completely hit it out of the park in the overall score. Now let's take a look at the syllabus. What is the syllabus for each of these sections? Starting with verbal ability and logical reasoning. So you have reading comprehension. The reading comprehension is kind of similar to that of CAT, but not exactly. The paragraphs are shorter. The questions are sometimes wordier. It requires more critical thinking. Here there's a huge emphasis on critical reasoning. So that is one of the required skills for that. So after reading comprehension, I feel the second most important part of VALR section is the critical reasoning section. Critical reasoning means identifying assumptions, identifying plans of actions, identifying what weakens, what strengthens. All those kind of questions come quite a bit in this section. Then you have parajumbles. Parajumbles are not theta parajumbles. You have MCQ parajumbles, which makes it slightly easier. But at the same time, they also increase the difficulty by giving 5 sentences or 6 sentences. So it is not really easier than CAT parajumbles. I would in fact say they are harder than CAT parajumbles. Then you have paracompletion. Paracompletion, I feel, is one of the easier parts of this entire section because it is easier to see where the paragraph is going and select one of the options which essentially completes the paragraph. You have grammar and sentence correction. A lot of people basically get very worried. Whenever I say grammar and sentence correction, they realize that, okay, I have not done any grammar till now. How do I learn all the grammar rules in just 1 month? Don't worry. That is very repetitive in what it asks, especially in the grammar and sentence correction questions. There are specific rules that it asks again and again. Prepositions, parallelism, like articles. We have just made a list of all the types of errors they generally ask about, grammatical rules they ask about. We have made videos about all of them and we have given multiple examples of all of them. So if you just go through the list, make a acronym of all the rules that you have to check, go through that list again and again, you will not make a mistake. It would be very easy for you to just say that, okay, check for parallelism, check for preposition errors, check for pronoun antecedent errors, check for subject verb agreement, check for all of these things. Then you figure out, okay, it is passing all of these tests, so this sentence is grammatically correct. If it fails any of these tests, then it is not grammatically correct. So because of that, so don't freak out about this section. Do not worry. We have you amply covered over here. All of the grammatical errors that are introduced and asked in this exam, we have covered properly. Then is vocabulary based questions. This is slightly difficult to get better at. See, vocabulary is one of those things which improves over an extended period of time. You have to learn synonyms, antonyms, fill in the blanks. Sometimes it is like closed test where a paragraph is given and you have to fill in those particular missing values as such. All of this requires some amount of vocabulary skills, and vocabulary skills are difficult to improve in the short run. But what I would say is that try to look at sentences and try to read a lot in the coming weeks so that you have a more intuitive sense of the different words that are there. I would not encourage word power made easy or anything of that sort. But what you would rather see is basically you can see flashcards of vocabulary, common vocab words that might help you more. Okay. Then we come to decision making. Decision making is a section that is entirely different than anything else. This is like you have verbal, you have quant. So instead of DILR, you have something which is like completely different, which is decision making. This is basically the most important section to crack. You won't get a lot of marks over here, but often most of the students that I know, good students, basically fail to clear the cutoff of decision making. This cutoff can at times be as low as single digit. I have seen cutoffs of 5 and 7 marks and still people fail to clear them. A lot of times people get negative marks also in the DM section. So it's a kind of a difficult section. Why is it so difficult? Sometimes it is difficult to justify why this is the answer and why that is not the answer. Because of some amount of subjectivity involved, it is often difficult to figure out what should be the correct answer in decision making. However, I have recently spoken to the ZAT convener and have gotten some insight about what they think is the right way to approach decision making section. They have tried to reduce subjectivity in this section as much as possible. They have tried to have kind of frameworks in this section as much as possible, identify the stakeholders, consider what is given in the question, do not consider any external information. So they have given these guardrails about what you should do or should not do in decision making. So the subjectivity is kind of reduced. But even then, there are a lot of questions that are asked over here, which are often basically a lot of students struggle to answer. How did you come at this answer? So I'll tell you basically what type of sets are asked. So one of the commonly asked sets are HR related. So somebody does something in office, so HR is called in. So should the HR fire? Should the HR suspend? Should they launch an investigation? All of those kind of sets are asked. That is basically related to human resources and organizational behavior. Similarly, business related sets are about operations and strategy. Where should he set up a stall? Where would you expand into? What kind of region should you expand into? How should you change your strategy? What should be your go-to-market strategy? Those kind of sets are also asked. Then you also have sets which are about individual or personal habits or personal life, that you face an ethical dilemma. You are like caught in the middle of like some fight or some kind of a dilemma and you don't know what exactly is the right thing to do. Or you also have some kind of difficulty where there is no ethical dilemma, but basically you are asked from a personal issue or from an individual's experience, what would be the right thing to do. So these kind of sets are also asked. There are also sets which are about plan of action. So what should be the plan of action? Figure out which steps should they take and in what order. You should figure out, okay, which facts are needed to arrive at a decision and in what order. So these kind of sets are also asked, where you have to essentially evaluate information that is required and consider the next steps. Okay, over here, how do you actually prepare for decision making? As far as possible, when we are teaching decision making, we have tried to remove subjectivity from the subject. So we have tried to remove like guesswork, or we are trying to remove, okay, this is right, this is wrong, by trying to provide you a framework for it. As long as you consistently apply the framework, that always be ethical, always be transparent, always follow the guidelines that are established, company codes of conduct, etc. As long as you follow that framework, more or less you will always come to the right answer. So this is about the decision making section. Now let's go to the third part, which is QADI. So QADI, I actually feel is pretty similar to the quant section of the CAT exam. So you can think that you need to do some amount, like say 40% of the work for the VLR section. This is 100% of the work for the DM section. And for the quant section, you need to do like 10% of the work. It is not very different from the quant section that you have in CAT. The arithmetic, algebra are same as CAT. In fact, arithmetic is slightly easier. Algebra is also slightly easier. But sometimes they add algebraic expressions which CAT people don't ask. So here you have to remember the different algebraic expressions and expansion. Over here you have geometry. Geometry actually has equal weightage as algebra. You also get a lot of questions on solids. You get questions on trigonometry, heights and distances. You get questions on coordinate geometry. All of these things are rarely asked in CAT. So you might not have practiced them for CAT, but you should definitely do that for ZAT. Number systems are asked, HCF, LCM, cyclicity of factors, remainder theorems comes, okay. So a lot of times people leave remainder theorems because it doesn't come in CAT. It comes over here, you have to revise it. Then you have modern maths, logarithms, progressions and series, PNC, probability. A lot of people leave PNC and probability for CAT. It has a greater role to play in ZAT. It is much more prominent in ZAT. It's not huge, but it is like you can expect at least a couple of questions from PNC and probability in ZAT. For sure, at least 2 questions will be there. Then you have Venn diagrams and set theory. Simple Venn diagram questions can come, simple set theory questions can come about mean, median, mode also. So all of those should also be considered. Then you have at least 1 or 2 DI sets which are either based on tables or charts. So this is basically what you have to do in terms of syllabus. Much is similar, there are some differences. So I actually want you to know very clearly what is the extra things that you have to do. What is similar is most of the QADI section is similar. Reading comprehension is more or less similar. You have some types of RCs which are like poem RCs. Sometimes they ask cartoons, etc. But the normal RC questions are more or less similar. Parajumbles, they are giving you options, but otherwise it is more or less similar. So a lot is common with CAT. But what is uncommon with CAT, or what is very different from CAT, firstly is the decision making section. You have to put a lot of emphasis on this section. You have to prepare very well for this particular section, because a lot of good students end up flunking this section. So you have to do very well in this section. There are differences in the VALR section. Sometimes they give you a small poem and then they ask you 1 or 2 questions on it. So it is basically you are supposed to understand the poem and answer questions on it. I don't understand poems. Most of my students don't understand poems. So I have basically found a hack to find answers for these kind of questions. So don't worry, we have you covered. Last year they gave a cartoon, and sometimes I feel when I spoke to the ZAT convener, he said that they took feedback from the current students about what should be asked in ZAT, and a lot of students suggested that why don't you give memes as one of the things in the paper. So they said that okay, memes might be too much, but we'll put a cartoon. So they put a cartoon, then they asked a interpretive question on that. So these are essentially, you have to consider, like you have reading comprehension, right? Similar to reading comprehension, instead of giving a passage, they can either give you a poem or they can give you a cartoon. So this is slightly different to that. Then you have critical reasoning. Critical reasoning is an entirely very important part of VALR, and it is a huge topic. You have to do a lot of videos. We have you covered, but you have to take this seriously because this is super important for that. Then you have trigo and heights and distances. Trigo will take you like half a day. You have to remember the trigonometric identities. Basically, a question on trigonometric identities will be asked. So you have to mug up the different identities and then just move around identities till you get one of the answers. Heights and distances are easy. If you understand what is angle of elevation, angle of depression, it becomes like pretty simple common geometry as such. These two are slightly different from what you have in geometry, but they are not difficult topics at all. Then you have coordinate geometry. Most of you would have done coordinate geometry for CAT, but in case you did not do it, please make sure that you do it for ZAT. One of question will be asked on this. Then you have PNC and probability. As I mentioned, 2 to 3 questions come from here, so you can no longer afford to completely ignore the topic. But you need not worry because the questions that are asked are very simple. It is like direct application. So because of that, because the questions are easier, I would say that it's that you can actually cover it in within a month. You can easily cover PNC and probability and get decently good at it so that you solve the ZAT level questions. Then you have algebraic expressions. As I mentioned, they are part of algebra, but you will have like expansions, etc., which are not there in actual CAT. Those kind of algebraic expansions often come as part of ZAT. Now you have the course materials. So how do you use Crack Course ZAT crash course to actually crack CAT? What all is included? See, the 3 pillars of CAT are also applicable for ZAT. The first pillar is basically learning. I want you to learn the concept videos. So how to actually tackle DM, how to approach DM. I've explained all of it in detail in the videos. You can also call them as batch tasks because they come as tasks for the day. In addition to that, we have daily live classes. I want you to attend the live classes. I want you to participate in them, solve in them. A lot of this is related to solving questions. The more you solve, the better intuitive sense you are going to get of decision making. So please make sure that you attend the live classes as well as attend and make sure that you complete the concept videos. The second part of it is the study room. We have about 1000 questions in the ZAT study room. So that will give you ample practice for ZAT specific questions. In addition to that, we'll try to start the daily target for ZAT. We'll try to keep it as regular as possible. These are the additional practice that you have to do well in the ZAT exam. The last pillar, as always, is mocks and sectionals. There are 10 mocks, 15 sectionals. With this, you will be adequately tested for the actual exam. There is basically you learn, you practice, you test, and make sure you finish the 10 mocks and 15 sectionals. You don't have a lot of time. It's only 1 month to actually prepare for ZAT, but you have to try to take at least like 2 mocks per week for you to actually finish all 10 mocks and be prepared for ZAT. So I would suggest that try to finish as many of these mocks as possible. Initially, you might take 1 mock a week, but try to take more mocks towards the end so that you complete all the 10 mocks and the 15 sectionals. So this is about the course and this is about the exam. So a lot of people are worried that is it enough time to actually prepare for that? Would I be able to crack that? Or like why even, like I've just spent so much time and effort preparing for CAT, why should I put in again that much time and that much effort for that? So I'll answer all these together. See, why should you put this effort for that? See, a lot of people give CAT. 2.9 lakh people give CAT. About half of them or one third of them give ZAT. So the competition is much lower for ZAT. Secondly, XLRI is an excellent school. If you are somebody who is good in the VLR section, okay, there are guys who are good at quant, there are guys who are good at VLR, verbal ability. If you are good at VLR, this is actually the exam where you have a natural advantage. If you're good at quant, CAT is the exam that you have a natural advantage. So if you're actually good at verbal section, you should definitely give that because you have an advantage over here. Secondly, why should you give that? There is lesser competition. There are a good number of seats available in top B schools, and it has a much more transparent mechanism of like GDPI, etc. So I will answer first the question why you should prepare for this exam and why you should give this exam. See, if you have already prepared for CAT, you have done a lot of work which is also useful over here. You should make best use of that preparation. It's only some amount of incremental work that needs to be done for you to crack that. And that is not a trivially easy exam, but nor is it too hard or too difficult also. It's an exam that you can actually cover in 1 month. So I want you to put that effort because I feel that XLRI is an excellent institute. These kind of institutes have stellar placement records, and it is absolutely worth it taking the ZAT exam. So that is why you should take the exam. Would 1 month be enough to crack the exam? Absolutely. Because if you already prepared for CAT, much of the preparation is already done. You are already at 60-65%. The last 30-35% has to be done, 35-40% has to be done. So why not complete that work and get yourself another chance at getting into a dream B school? So I would always suggest that, so while it might be very tempting to just rest at this point of time, say that I have done enough, just do this one bit extra so that you increase your chances, of going to your dream B school this year. Okay, so this is about the ZAT exam and why you should give it. I hope all of you guys prepare seriously for the exam. If you're looking for Krakow ZAT crash course, we'll put the phone number that you can contact for our crash course in this video. Also, if you're interested in Krakow ZAT crash course, please message the number that you see on screen. We will always be happy to answer any doubts or any questions that you might have about our crash course. So with that, best of luck, and I hope all of you crack that.